Hello, welcome to Astrology with Jo. Thanks for joining me today for a lunation reading as we discuss the upcoming Aries New Moon 2026. This is occurring on Friday, the 17th of April at about 10 to 10 p.m. That's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now, usually new moons are more subtle under the radar and less obvious than the brighter full moons. But this one is probably going to pack a punch. It's going to be another peak point of energy for the month. It's stoking the flames that we have blazing already. And this is because, in terms of the energy of the zodiac sign that the moon falls in, new moons are always very pure and undiluted and potent in that sign's energy because, of course, both the sun and the moon are in this sign. In this case, it's Aries. So not only do we have this very strong, unadulterated Aries force here with both the sun and the moon in this sign, but we also have an existing saturation of Aries energy that you're probably hearing most astrologers talk about at the moment. So we have Neptune, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Chiron, Eris, the sun and moon, of course, eight planets and points here. That is a lot. Some astrologers have said that this is the highest concentration of planets in one sign that they've actually seen in decades. This does not happen all the time. This new moon is also making only one major aspect, which is a conjunction within its same sign of Aries. So we don't even have any other influence from any other signs touching this new moon by major aspect. And again, that's just another way that this new moon is just so exclusively Aries and nothing else. In saying that, however, there is another very important minor aspect that I'll be covering in this reading as well. But this new moon is therefore very dynamic, very potent in terms of its significance because of all these things. Now, whether this is touching any points in your natal chart or not, you will most likely be feeling the influence of this new moon. This is probably because you're most likely already feeling the influence of the jam-packed, hypercharged Aries stellium that is blazing through one of the houses, if not two, of your natal chart. So if you check to see which house or houses in your birth chart have Aries present, especially the house that has Aries on the cusp, because this is going to show which sphere of life is being strongly affected by this fiery Aries chariot, not only from this new moon, but also all of these Aries planets that we have at this time. So as the first sign of the zodiac associated with new burstings forth of life, burgeoning of buds, the opening of eggs, the first breath of life, the strong Aries influence often brings a real thrust forward. Now, Aries is already the energy of beginnings, initiation, pioneering, and leading. And the new moon, remember, it's the beginning point of the whole lunation cycle. It is also the energy of beginnings and initiation. So there is some kind of almighty start or push here. And from this point, there will probably be no turning back from. There's no walking backwards into the flames. This is just really having to ride that blaze forward. And with the heavy Aries emphasis that we have already this year from the Saturn-Neptune ingresses and conjunction that we also had throughout last year, that perfected in February, all of these cycles, these outer planets, the cycles are starting anew. And at this point in time, with all of these Aries planets and at this Aries new moon, things are starting to boil. They're reaching a head. Yes, they are going to heat up even more. And the new moon here is going to really reflect this in how things are just going to shoot forward after this new moon on the 17th of April. So this is acceleration. This is going fast and furious. This is the warrior charging, the neurons firing. Saturn is in Aries here, maybe trying to slow down things a little. It's adding some accountability, adding some checkpoints that could be inhibiting or blocking or frustrating. This could give like a sense of running as fast as you can, like a mouse on a wheel, but just not going forward, not going anywhere, no matter how much passion and energy you put into something, which can cause some steam to come out of the ears and to have tempers on edge. Aries does also represent anger and survival instincts. So these are the kind of things that are going to be really obvious right now. And on a personal level, Aries is really first and foremost about identity. It's about courage. It's your sense of independent self, being self-driven, self-motivated. So whilst very heated and potentially fractious, this is a time of immense potential. Remember, the new moon is the seed point where things grow from. This is about creation with Aries and the new moon. This is about acting for yourself, speaking for yourself. This is expressing with the sun and feeling with the moon a true sense of self-confidence and self-trust. And this could potentially be a launch pad for something truly you and something truly yours. In saying that, I wouldn't necessarily take any grand or risky steps around this time, at least not on the day of the new moon, not until the moon enters a Taurus, the next day or the day after, just to let the heat simmer down a bit, because Aries, Aries and Mars, which is in the sign of Aries, and it's in a triple conjunction, no less, with Mercury and Saturn. Aries and Mars, by activation and aspect, they can herald accidents, emergencies, conflict, like arguments, even impulsivity, rashness, immaturity. This is quick fire and fighting words because Mercury is present here as well in this triple conjunction. We also do have Neptune in Aries as well, and there's already a sort of semi-crusading energy in the air, really fighting for what you believe in, and also about having faith, Neptune, in yourself, Aries. Again, this is trusting yourself, but again, trusting those instincts as to whether or not to really take any risks or to really take any significant steps forward yet. This is really about tapping into the drive and the passion and the direction rather than as yet taking any direct energy, unless, of course, you do feel that it's right for you. It is just worth noting that this triple conjunction with Mercury, Saturn, and Mars, which I talk about over on my Patreon and Substack, if you'd like to go and check that out, it is worth keeping in mind that whilst there's a phenomenal amount of energy behind that and behind all of these Aries planets in general, what's also present with that energy is the possibility of those other Aries facets, such as accidents and incidents that you weren't necessarily planning for, that aren't necessarily beneficial for what you want moving forward. Now, if we do have a look at this lunation chart, we can see the row of planets in Aries, and there's so many there that they actually don't even fit in that first portion of the house in this Aries rising chart. It is difficult to say which conjunctions of all of these planets that are meeting each other, passing over each other, like which of these transits is the most poignant, because there is just such an oversaturation of Aries energy. This is an Aries stew here, and it might not be possible to really sort or ascertain which transiting conjunction is having its effect when, because it's kind of all blending into one here in this period of time that is so Aries heavy. And again, I do cover this on my Patreon and Substack. I break down some of these conjunctions if you would like to find out more. And just to make some sense of this very heated period of time, and also the time frames of when it's also likely to start ebbing a bit in its influence. If you don't want to become a member or subscribe, you can make a one-time purchase of $11 just on my Patreon page to get the latest forecast on those Aries dates. Anyway, the ruler of this lunation, Mars, is, as I said, in a triple conjunction with Mercury and Saturn. This is around 7 degrees of Aries. It's coming to a head, perfecting on the 20th and the 21st of April for us here in Australia. Its influence, though, is already present and it's ongoing as part of this broader Aries wildfire that we have. And of course, we have Neptune's influence there as well at 2 degrees of Aries. Now, Mars wants quick action. Mercury is quick. Aries is quick. Mars likes it that way. However, Saturn here is the brake. Saturn slows things down, puts obstacles and obstructions and restrictions in the way for us to work through. So it's a very different kind of energy from the rest of this Aries energy in general that we have with Mars and Mercury here. So this could manifest or feel as potentially, there's two potentials here. One could be you're like a powerhouse of energy and passion. You have the drive, the motivation to get things done and to get things done well. Or you could be feeling a real heaviness around your passions and your energy. And you could be feeling quite worn, burnt out, or tired. It's likely that you do have a lot going on right now, maybe a lot of ideas with Mercury, maybe a lot of goals with Mars and Saturn. If we use this transit wisely, which is a Saturn word, we can be really using the rapid mental agility of Mercury and Aries here to work something out that's clever and logical in terms of how to get something done in a smart way, how to get through something, how to work on something, whatever this is for you. Mercury is about speaking, communication, and making connections. So it's important to be mindful how you are communicating at this time as well, because in the sign of Aries, sometimes we can put foot in mouth. Now, in terms of what you're trying to work out here, or what you're trying to head towards here, or what's going on for you, this could be manifesting in a multitude of different ways, as I said before, depending on where this is landing in your chart. So I would really encourage you to get your chart, figure out which house Aries is occupying to find out which sphere of life this is playing out for you. For example, I know that some of you have Aries in your 8th house, which is the house of shared resources. So things like finance and business arrangements, but also about intimacy, sex, relationship. There might be a rise in activity around these spheres of life. If you have this in your 9th house, there could be an uptake in metaphysical interests like symbology, astrology, religion. There could be increased travel or desires to study. Law might be a big part of what's being activated for you right now. If it falls in your 2nd house, this will be your livelihood, possessions, income, money that are taking center stage around this time. If it's in your 3rd house, then your social life is probably absolutely buzzing. Maybe you want to go and learn something new. And again, I watch what you're saying to the people around you, because that is the house of communication, community, and connections. So it really just depends where this new moon falls, where Aries is in your chart, as to how this is working in your life. There are a few of you listening who were born in the 80s, and you have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Libra. This is around 27 degrees. So guess what? This new moon is directly opposing that conjunction. It's activating how Chiron and Eris have already been opposing this in your chart for quite some time now. So if you were born in the 80s and you've actually already had a reading with me, you can look at your report to see that Chiron transit to your Saturn-Pluto conjunction, to see how this has been manifesting in your life, to get an idea of how you can work with this new moon on the 17th of April around those themes. On that note, let's just have a look at the Chiron Eris conjunction, which this new moon in Aries is sitting on, waking up even more. This new moon is conjunct Chiron and Eris. I know I said this is kind of an Aries stew with so many bodies here, and it can be difficult to decipher the individual conjunctions that are going on, but the new moon is a definitive turning point as the start of the lunar cycle. So the fact that it occurs on this specific degree in Aries, conjunct these two planetary bodies, Chiron and Eris, makes Chiron and Eris really forefront around this time. And it's inextricably part of this new moon's beginning or turning point that it's going to be bringing forth. And this is especially true because we only just had the 3rd and final conjunction of Chiron and Eris just on the 19th of March. Now, these two are slow moving, so the influence of this aspect it extends for a longer period of time. So we're essentially still in this final conjunction between these two. So how very synchronistic to have an Aries new moon on this point, which has just culminated for the final time. The Chiron Eris conjunction has been in its orb of influence probably from the beginning of 2025. This is more of a collective transit affecting humanity as a whole, really before it functions on a personal level, unless, of course, as I said, you have this transiting a significant point in your chart, like you Saturn-Pluto conjunction people. So if you can think back to, firstly, the 27th of May last year, and secondly, the 9th of October last year. So 27th of May and 9th of October. These were the two previous conjunctions of Chiron and Eris. So see if there are any correlations or associations with those dates or around those dates to what's unfolding for you now. 27th of May, 9th of October. So not only have we probably reached some kind of culmination or completion, or are at least in the process of this, but this new moon is activating a new beginning, turning a new leaf in terms of whatever it is that you've been moving through from the beginning of 2025. Chiron represents transcendence or bridging something, but it's through healing, wisdom, and experience. And it's also through a type of pain or hurt or wounding that you are carrying that is a part of you, whether it's giving you pain currently or whether it's something you've moved through in the past and the experience of that and where it has led you has become part of you, has become part of your life. Chiron sort of represents that wounding that we do carry for all of our life, whether it's just the wisdom from the experience of that or whether it's carrying that wound itself. Chiron in Aries can signify identity wounds. So it's an experience of not being able to be who you are or of not knowing who you are, where there may be fear around being yourself. This can speak of a lack of courage, self-confidence, or motivation. And collectively, Chiron has been sifting through the multitude of archetypes of the wounded yang or wounded masculine. So toxic masculinity in all of its forms and how it affects others, how it affects the world, how it affects women. And this is including how this both conditions and affects men. So what it culturally means to be a quote unquote real man. So this also speaks of the wounds that men and masculinity can inflict and those who are wounded, hurt, or violated by this. You don't need an astrologer to point out what's going on in the world right now that is reflecting this transit. Now, Eris, goddess of discord, bringer of chaos, is stirring this pot. It turns the flames up so that it boils over and you have to rush to the stove to sort it out. Eris has the knack of not creating chaos, but of pointing out the elephant in the room, pointing out what's not working, what is stagnant, unjust, hypocritical. And when something is unbalanced or unjust, what have you, she doesn't have to do much to bring attention to it because it's usually at that point where it should be obvious, but it's probably something that we're repressing. And this can be as simple as switching on a light so that you can see what's really there. This can cause turmoil, and the act of switching on the light, metaphorically, whatever that is, can actually be something quite turbulent. It can cause despair and even trauma, especially in Aries. What it does also allow us to do is to see what we weren't allowed to see before, whether that's repressing something within yourself or having something purposefully withheld from you. This is a rising up for independence, autonomy, and self-leadership. So this is about not being squashed or used. And this is also quite the trauma signature. So there may be things arising that are deeply unpleasant to the point of horrific for you to work through, certainly for the collective and for humanity to work through. And we're seeing this. In fact, it's rather being rubbed in our faces. And that's what Eris does when something has been repressed or something has been refused or refused acknowledgement. Things burst. And the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, apropos of that we had in Aries, it's really all about bubble popping and deflating something that was previously conflated. So this new moon in Aries, it's not just going to deflate something. This bubble is going to pop with a real bang. Chiron and Eris can be a force for good as well. This is a conjunction, so it's a powerful aspect, but it's not always called a quote unquote bad aspect. Chiron is healing, Chiron is wise, it teaches, it opens the way for acceptance. So in Aries, this can be self-acceptance, where previously there had not been, which is what Eris can be bringing up for you. So this can be used as a force for justice, for representation, vindication, and a real force for being able to embody your true sense of self. But yes, this is a highly sensitive point being activated. So be mindful of what others might be going through. Be mindful of what you yourself are moving through, and maybe what you might need, because this is the moon here, the new moon, you might be needing some of that self-acceptance and tolerance, using that polarity of Libra to balance this out. Now, Mars, yes, it's ruling this lunation and it's ruling all of these Aries planets and interactions. And Mars is in that triple conjunction, as I said, with Saturn and Mercury. Mars is also activating another aspect, which is the Saturn-Pluto sextile. We just had the perfection of this on the 29th of March. And yes, it's another slow-moving aspect. It is still in play. And the Aries planets that are moving over Saturn continuously in Aries, they're waking up and extending the emphasis of that Saturn-Pluto sextile as well. I did speak about that aspect again on my Patreon and Substack. If you'd like to join as a member or subscribe, get the latest forecast for $11. This sextile, which now involves the ruler of this lunation, Mars, it's essentially indicating the next step of a very significant cycle. Saturn and Pluto were conjunct, initiating their synodic cycle back in January 2020, and this is their next passing aspect. So what themes back from those days, January 2020, I wonder, could be resurfacing now? This is all about power structures, transformation, Pluto, of your commitments, work, duties, responsibilities with Saturn. This is a supposed helpful aspect that if we do put the work in, it can really benefit us in terms of long-lasting and powerful implications. And this is involving transformations, endings, cycling through things, and it's your life's power structures, what power means to you, and how your duties, commitments, and work goals are feeding that empowerment or not, and how they might be metamorphosing out of those old paradigms into new, in Aries, into new self-reliant ways of being. So that is another factor playing into this Aries new moon, because the ruler transiting is now part of that Saturn-Pluto sextile. There is one other part to this aspect I'm not going to go into massive detail about. I spoke about it in my last forecast. It's very important. It's ongoing. It's the quincunx aspects coming from both Saturn and Pluto in that sextile to the South Node in Virgo. You can see the green lines on the screen forming this triangle. The nodes are becoming more and more significant as they travel backwards towards the beginning degrees of their signs and making contact with all of these outer planets, shifting signs and initiating these whole new life paradigms. The South Node isn't usually spoken about in terms of transits. It's usually the North Node that astrologers anatomize, but the fact that this slow-moving sextile part of this dynamic new moon has been and will be traveling with one of these nodes, the South Node, in this configuration. And I would say that this configuration is in contact for pretty much over a month. And that means that this is very significant. These two quincunx aspects from these heavy hitters, Saturn and Pluto, they're forming a yod, which makes an isosceles triangle, and the South Node is at the apex. This means that we have at the apex of a very uncomfortable awareness is an acknowledgement of what is draining us, draining you, what now has no purpose or significance for your higher good or your evolutionary trajectory. Now, in Virgo, this is about what is not healthy for you anymore, whatever that means for you, what doesn't serve your sovereign boundaries, your well-being, and your day-to-day existence. There is a heightened tense awareness of what might be sucking your energy away and what absolutely needs to wash away now for good. This is a letting go point. This is the drain hole of the zodiac. Things exit through the south node. And with the Saturn-Pluto sextile here, this is also revolving around the power structures in your life, and the responsibilities that you have. So letting go of something in terms of those themes is also going to be a large part of the story moving forward and is also tied into this new moon. One last aspect to talk about here, the so-called minor aspect of the quincunx, which are actually, in fact, in my experience, very, very potent. Just a note, these quincunxes means that there is tension here. There is discomfort without necessarily resolution. So this is about creation and creativity and even inspiration then, in terms of making and manifesting ways to navigate through this discomfort. So the quincunx that we have here that I want to talk about is from this new moon to Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. Now, Black Moon Lilith actually has a very erratic, fast-moving orbit in her, like her cycle. So it's always sort of a luck of the draw if you cast a chart for a lunation and she's there in aspect. So she's here exactly quincunx this new moon. So I find that very significant as well. Now, these are 2 points that the new moon in Aries and Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio, they're 2 points that are both ruled by Mars. Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. Pluto co-rules Scorpio and is co-ruling Lilith, so she's bringing that Pluto-Saturn sextile into the flavor of this as well. Lilith is about personal power and boundaries. She also represents repression, denigration, shame, and exclusion, usually as an unjust consequence of maintaining your personal power. So this is about drawing a line, saying no, standing up for what's right for you, whether others like it or accept it or not. So there is strong discomfort here in doing so. There's a sense of being haunted or shadowed by the idea that what you're saying yes to might not be aligning with your personal sovereignty. The new moon in Aries is really about going for something, being courageous, having independence, leading with your own sense of self, etc. Lilith is showing that there may be some more dysfunctional facets of this coming through. One big Aries word that I haven't said yet is ego. So Aries can charge forward without heed of who or what it steps on or crushes in the process. This is being self-centeredly goal-oriented without the thought of the effects of what you're going for. So there could be a sense of more toxic power dynamics rearing up, and perhaps you could feel a little swallowed by a greater power, by ego, even being swallowed up by survival instinct or self. Lilith is uncomfortably pointing this out and saying, hey, remember your personal power. Dig deep into the complexes, Scorpio, that may be holding the reins of your life right now, and look them in the eye, meet them head on with Aries. There could be more beneath the surface if you look deep enough that's really going on than first meets the eye. Scorpio says look deeper. And while Aries just wants to make a snap decision and just go ahead because it wants to keep moving on, Scorpio here is saying you need to look in first, because there are some complexes here that need unraveling before you're able to do so in an empowered way. Interestingly, Mercury in Aries, by the time of this new moon, it will be exactly conjunct Neptune. It perfects on this day, the 17th of April. So this, whilst it's a very imaginative and inspirational combination, it's also one that can be about misinformation, things getting missed, gliding along the surface of things, not really having a clear picture, not having a clear head. So Lilith in quincunx to this new moon is saying, hey, I know it's uncomfortable to look deeper sometimes, but there's really a lot to find if you look, and right now we need to before moving forward. And yes, these are 2 Mars-ruled signs. So in Aries, Mars is the warrior. In Scorpio, Mars is the lover. Yes, I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive, but remember, the counterpoint to Mars is Venus, goddess of love, and they are the lovers of the zodiac, so-called. And the Scorpio influence is one of finding intimacy and trust. Yes, this involves passions, this involves looking at the darker side of things sometimes. Given the swathe of Aries planets here, even though this quincunx is uncomfortable and adding to that sort of Eris influence of stirring up troublesome waters, things that make you squirm or things you'd rather not look at, I still think this Scorpio influence can just add a little bit of more depth and cooling to the fires of Aries here. So this is about, I'm just getting what's at the heart of this fire, what's at the heart of your fire, what's keeping it burning. What are the hot coals that are feeding your passions, drives, and dreams? What's keeping your fire alight? There's an opportunity here to look deep to see what this is, even if it might not be something you want to look at, even though you might just want to charge forward without a thought. Given the influence of Lilith in Scorpio with Pluto connecting to this new moon, I'm thinking that power and manipulation is going to be a theme that comes up here, maybe even this type of corruption coming to light in front of the fires of Aries here. So it'll be very interesting to see what unfolds from this new moon, both collectively on the world stage, of course, but also in our individual personal lives, because I think everyone is going to be affected, and they probably are already being affected by this tremendous stellium of Aries planets here. So that's the Aries new moon. Again, that's happening on the 17th of April at 9:51 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I hope you found this podcast video helpful and interesting. If you think anyone else will find it enlightening, don't hesitate to share it with them so that we can spread the awesomeness of astrology around. It would also really help me out if you clicked those like and subscribe buttons on YouTube to support my astrology channel if you'd like me to continue making these forecasts. And as always, do check out Patreon, Substack, Instagram. All the links are in my YouTube blurb thing. If you do want any of my forecast videos, you can purchase them in the Patreon shop for just $11, or join up as a member for $22 a month, or subscribe for the same amount over on Substack. Thank you so much for listening once again. It's such a joy to share astrology with you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next forecast. Bye for now.